Hello everyone and welcome to Zach's Garage. Today we're going to be taking a look at our KOENIGSEGG Agera R, finished in white with blue, so let's take a little look around it. Okay, so let's go over the history of this car. So the Agera R's were built between 2011 and 2014, but this car was actually registered by us in 2017. So when the person who owned this took delivery of it, they had it delivered to Japan, never registered it, had all the protective film on it, never ever used it, took it over to Pebble Beach, where he drove it a few miles, displaying it, and that's where the car was first seen. And then he stored it in Japan for a very long time, until last year, where we were contacted by Super Vettura, who said to us, we've got this car, we found it, it is for sale, never been registered, would you like it? So we flew out to Japan, had a look at the car, shook hands on it, and now here it is. So this car is really special for multiple reasons. Obviously, the Need for Speed movie, that played a big role in it, because this was one of the 3 cars in that garage, which you see in the famous scene. But fortunately this one hasn't rolled off a cliff and blown up. Our KOENIGSEGG is finished in matte white, so now this was an optional paint. So when we actually first saw the car, the matte looked a little bit off, simply because the car is sat, so we gave it a proper detail, cleaned it all out and sent it off to a company to have it fully wrapped. So now as it sits here, it's got a matte wrap to it, but it also gives it a little bit more of a shine, so you can really see the little details in the car. So it's matte white on the exterior, but the secondary colour being the blue, which you can see the stripes here. But one of the main features on this car is the amount of anodizing in blue. This car has been anodized in loads of places, but the first place you see is the badge just here. So now this badge here has been anodized from silver to the blue that you see on the certain areas of the car. So it's got a black background with a blue sort of shield to it, which really makes it pop on the matte white paintwork. And then if we move around here, you can see more blue details, such as what's on the vents, all over the fins here, round the edges. And then you're greeted by another small detail, which is the white rim around the wheel, which adds just a little bit of contrast to the wheel, because obviously it's quite a dark colour. It's one of the main things you see. Then we also have a ghost here, which is obviously the famous ghost symbol, which is it's just a vinyl sticker put over the wrap, but something to add a bit of character. We've also got the blue line going all the way down here, and blue details coming along here and along here. So all these can be easily missed, but if you didn't have them on the car, well, it wouldn't look quite the same. So if we move further back, details such as the wing mirrors. So these wing mirrors, as you've probably seen on the 1-to-1, are not the normal wing mirrors that come on the Agera R, but on a lot of owners who have had the Agera Rs, they all have the wing mirror and the wheel conversions. So obviously the wing mirrors provide more downforce and a little bit of extra styling, which is quite cool. So if we move back here, you've got the Agera R symbol, also in matte white with the blue R logo, which is quite cool, and especially as that has been painted, it's not a wrap, it's not a sticker. So if we move further back, you'll see more blue details all over the car, and then you're greeted by an awesome looking rear end. Okay, so carbon fibre, it's all over the car, and the car is actually made out of the stuff, but we'll get to that in a second. So as I was mentioning before, there is anodizing all over the car, but where is the most anodizing? Well, it's under the clamshell. So if we lift it up, not only are you greeted by a piece of artwork that is the engine, you're also greeted by small details such as the rams here, all of the wording, and even the springs that have been anodized in blue. So what powers this car? Like most other KOENIGSEGGs, this has the 5-litre V8 derived from the Agera R. It's got twin turbos on it. Now this engine is producing between the region of 12 to 1300 brake horsepower, which is madness compared to every other car. I mean, I drive a 66 brake horsepower Kia as a daily car, so this basically spits that out the exhaust. But anyway, so inside here you've got carbon fibre everywhere. You've got the carbon airbox, the top of the engine's carbon fibre, and basically anywhere that you can see they're trying to make out of carbon fibre. Now the reason for that is to make it as light as possible, obviously because it's a hypercar, and also because, well, carbon fibre looks pretty good. Carbon fibre everywhere results in the car being incredibly light. So what does that mean? Well, when you've got 1200 brake horsepower inside and the car weighs nothing, you're being propelled from 0 to 60 in 2.8 seconds. Now, that really is fast. And you know what the even crazier thing is? If you run this on normal 95 octane, it'll run the 1200 brake horsepower. If you put E85, it actually boosts the horsepower significantly. So now, the reason for that is one of the main differences between this and the previous Agera. So this has got a fuel system which it can automatically work out what fuel is being put into the engine and adjust the engine accordingly. So if you're running it on E85 or E100 fuel, you're having such a vast boost in power that it's basically a different car. Okay, so the suspension on this shares an upgraded version of the original Agera R suspension. So it's got the triplex Koenigsegg suspension, which is obviously featured on a lot of Koenigsegg's, but varies from model to model. So obviously it went from the Agera, which has the Agera suspension, and it improved to the Agera R, which is a bit stiffer, a little bit more track focused, and then you have the 1-to-1, which is much more track focused and different springs, but same suspension. So the dampers, the Öhlins dampers, they're featured on all Koenigsegg's, onwards from, I believe, don't quote me on this, the CC series, so the CCX onwards feature the Öhlins dampers, and if they don't, most of the Koenigsegg owners are improving them to the Öhlins dampers. Tyres, obviously, as you can see from this angle, they are vast. I mean, I can put my hands here and you can see that is 2 hands wide. So they're Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2s, custom built for Koenigsegg by obviously Michelin, and they are stupid money. But they change, the prices obviously change depending on if they have them in stock, if they have to make them, etc, etc. But believe me, and I don't think I have to say it many times, these are fairly extreme tyres. The bodywork on this. The body is made out of a carbon Kevlar weave, and it is painted over obviously in matte whites, but you have some aspects just here which is obviously the clear carbon. Now, all of the carbon fibre you see here is actually finished in gloss, but with a matte PPF over it, just so that it doesn't contrast too much. Okay, so we're now sitting inside the car, and one of the main materials used in our Agera R is the Alcantara. The interior is kept very dark because obviously the exterior is very bright. So on the interior we have carbon fibre here and on the dashboard, but you also have Alcantara seats. Now these were the comfort seats. They were finished in the drift pattern, which you can see here, and also the roof lining is also in the drift pattern but on white, as well as behind the seats it is also in white Alcantara, but that's just to give it a little bit of contrast. The centre console here, you will find obviously the start-stop button, but usually all of this comes in chrome. Now this has actually been anodised in black for the same reasons mentioned before, because it is a bright outside colour. As mentioned before, anodising plays a big feature in this car. So on the air vents, the rims of it have been anodised in black. The front dashboard has also been anodised in black, but you have the shields and the seat eyes in blue. And one of the coolest features in this car, something that I don't know how the original owner thought of, is just down here, which I will grab, is a blue anodised fire extinguisher. Now that to me is just awesome, because who would have thought about a red normal fire extinguisher and having it in blue? I mean, it's just such a cool feature. So with the Agera R and multiple other Koenigsegg's, one of the main features of the car is the fact that the roof can come off. Now, it's a stowable hardtop, it's not electronic, it's removed using 3 bolts in the front and 2 bolts in the back. You have a little key and you can put it in the roof bag and slide it in the front. But in order to show you that, we're going to move to the front just so I can show you the storage. Okay, so we're now at the front storage compartment of where you would put the roof. Now the first thing in order to do to take the roof off is you undo these 2 clips and you lift this front panel here. Now also stitched with the Koenigsegg emblem, so another quite cool design feature. If we reach in here, you'll find this little device. Now this obviously is to remove the roof, the 3 bolts at the front, 2 bolts at the back as mentioned. And then what you would do, you would place this, you'd obviously keep the key inside the car, you'd put this back on. Now the reason for the bag is, as mentioned with the Koenigsegg emblem stitched, if you were to put the roof on, it could damage the roof and just leave a little mark. So you put it in the bag. So with these 2 rubber hoses, you remove them, you fold them back into the back here. Now what they do is that if it's raining, the water flows through here into this hole here that you can't see, and then it goes into there and out the bottom of the car. But if you've got the roof off, you can risk having water run into here. But if you've got the roof off, you're not going to be driving it in the rain, are you? So there we go. So then you would slide the roof into here with the bag. It goes quite far back. Then you would simply shut this, and away you go with your convertible Koenigsegg Agera R. From here you can see small details such as the white lines on the diffuser. Now that was something that we did, that isn't painted, that is just a little sticker on there. But one of the main things I chose when we took delivery of this car was this part here. So now the original Agera comes with a flush exhaust tip. Now as you've seen on the 1-to-1 and some other Koenigsegg's, you have this extruding exhaust tip. Now I think this adds a lot of style. But in order to do that, I had to fiddle with the exhaust. Now, when people mention fiddling with the exhaust, it probably means something to do with the sound. So let me start this up so you can hear this V8 roar. Okay, so in order to start this car, you have to have the key, which is some pretty fancy piece of jewellery more than a key. Then you simply press your foot on the brake and press the engine start-stop button to start the engine. When you're sitting in the driver's seat, what's the first things you're greeted by? Well, an Alcantara coated steering wheel with carbon fibre all over. Now this steering wheel is actually made purely out of carbon fibre, and the handles just here are just coated in some Alcantara. But what's quite special about this car is the paddles have actually been anodised in blue and the symbols painted in white. Now that just has a little bit of a feel to it that shows that you are driving something truly unique. Also, you have the shield and the Koenigsegg logo anodised for more uniqueness inside the car. Okay, so the centre panel here, obviously most Koenigseggs feature this design, but I want to run through with you this car. So what do all the buttons do? So you have up and down, obviously that side for the passenger side, this side for the driver's side, down being there and there. You have the suspension lifter, you have fog lights, you have the door lock, you have full, so that's to switch your headlights on. You also have parking lights, which are the daytime running lights that you see curved around the lights. You can press those if you want them on or off. But in order to have the headlights on, you have to have those on, then you simply press that and use the stalk to control your full beam or low beam. We have the LCD screen here which controls multiple things, but let me show you a few key features of the car. So here we have the climate control, where you can select where you want the air coming to, whether you want it out of these vents, or if you want it facing the floor. If you want the air recircled, you press that, or if you want the defrost, you press that. Now notice you can't have both of them. You can't have air coming from the vents and going to defrost. So that's another little feature. Here you control whether you want it cold, hot, air conditioning or auto defrost. And then if we go down to the Koenigsegg symbol, you can see performance modes. Now, most people drive it on normal unless it's heavily snowing or really wet. These cars can adapt to themselves, but if you find that you're worried about the conditions, you can obviously select it. Now, track mode makes everything a little bit more responsive, and it also fiddles with the stability control settings. But if you want to drive it on normal and go completely crazy, you can always press this, which is obviously traction control off, stability control, and you then have a car with 1200 to 1300 brake horsepower that is a hell of a lot to handle. But anyway, if we move on, G-force and tyre info. So here you have the G-force indicator, which shows how much G-force you're currently experiencing. So when you're accelerating, obviously it goes plus. when you're decelerating, obviously it goes minus. Lateral Gs, and also tyre temperatures and pressures. So if we go over to mirrors, that obviously controls the mirrors. These are electronic. Warning messages, now you only have to go on this if something will pop up, a little symbol here, and that will show you if there's something you need to check out. System, you only have to go on that if you're one of the engineers. So we took delivery of this car last December. The car had 200 miles and it now has 1500. That means it has been used and it's going to be used even more soon. We're looking at taking it on rallies, taking it to loads of events, whether it be in England or abroad, and I want to take you guys along for the ride. So I hope you've learned a little bit about the car. I hope you've seen some cool things that maybe you didn't know before, and if you want to know more, make sure to subscribe for loads more content. So as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next video. Thanks again.